public hearing as follows. Due to the current public health emergency, City Council committees are currently meeting remotely. We are using Microsoft Teams to make these remote hearings possible. Instructions for how the public may view and offer public testimony at the public hearing of council committees are included in the public hearing notices that are published in the Daily News, Enquirer, and Legal Intelligencer prior to the hearings and can also be found on phlcouncil.com. Will the clerk please call roll to take attendance? Members that are in attendance will please indicate that they are present when their names are called. Also, say a few brief words when responding so that your image will be displayed on screen when you speak. Will the clerk please call a roll?
Mark Squilla. David O.
Present.
Cindy
Mr.
Bass.
Chairman, thank you very much.
Cindy Bass. Cindy Bass.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and colleagues. Looking forward to today's hearing.
Catherine Gilmore Richardson.
Good morning, Joe Shu. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and colleagues. Thank you so much.
Bobby Heenan.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, colleagues.
Maria Quinones Sanchez.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and colleagues, and thank you for accommodating this during this crazy schedule. Appreciate it.
Curtis Jones Jr.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, colleagues. Good morning, viewing public.
Hey, Fran, hold on.
Brian O'Neill.
Good morning, everyone.
That's the roll, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. A quorum of the committee is present and the hearing is now called to order. This is the public hearing of the Committee on Rules regarding bills number 200183, 200346, 200349, and 200350. Before we proceed with the hearing, I will note that the following bills are being held at the request of their sponsors. Bills number 200160, 200260, and 200348. Will the clerk please read the titles of the bills?
200183, an ordinance approving the Ninth Amendment of the redevelopment proposal for the Point Breeze urban renewal area, being the area generally bounded by Washington Avenue, South 25th Street, Reed Street, the rear property lines of the 1400 and 1500 blocks of South Taylor Street, Tasker Street, South 25th Street, Moore Street, and South Broad Street, including the Ninth Amendment to the Urban Renewal Plan, which provides, inter alia, for changes that would make it consistent with the Point Breeze redevelopment area plan and generally consistent with the most recent comprehensive plan approved by the City Planning Commission of the City of Philadelphia. 200346, an ordinance to amend the Philadelphia zoning maps by changing the zoning designations of certain areas of land located within an area bounded by 56th Street, Arch Street, Conestoga Street, and Market Street. 200349, an ordinance amending Title 14 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Zoning and Planning to amend certain provisions of Chapter 14-500 entitled Overlay Zoning Districts by creating the AME American Street Overlay District, all under certain terms and conditions. 200350, an ordinance amending the Philadelphia zoning maps by changing the zoning designations of certain areas of land located within an area bounded by North Street, American Street, Burke Street, and 3rd Street, and amending Title 14 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Zoning and Planning to amend certain provisions of Chapter 14-500 entitled Overlay Zoning Districts by creating the BNA Berks and American Overlay District, all under certain terms and conditions.
Before we begin to hear testimony from the witnesses we have for today, everyone who has been invited to the meeting to testify should be aware that this public hearing is being recorded. Because the hearing is public, participants and viewers have no reasonable expectation of privacy. By continuing to be in the meeting, you are consenting to being recorded. Additionally, prior to recognizing members for the questions or comments they have for witnesses, I will note for the record at this time that we will use the chat feature available in Microsoft Teams to allow members to signify that they wish to be recognized. In order to comply with the Sunshine Act, the chat feature must only be used for this purpose. Will the clerk please call the first panel for Bill number 200183?
Angel Rodriguez.
Good morning, Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Angel Rodriguez. I'm the Assistant Executive Director, or Deputy Executive Director of the Redevelopment Authority. I'm here to speak in support of Bill number 200183, which is the 9th Amendment to the redevelopment proposal for the Point Breeze urban renewal area. This bill would authorize the Philadelphia Redevelopment Authority to facilitate the implementation of the most recent comprehensive plan approved by the Philadelphia City Planning Commission. The Philadelphia City Planning Commission has determined that the proposed revisions in this amended proposal is consistent with Philadelphia 2035 citywide vision and the South District Plan. The current comprehensive plan identifies forward-thinking goals and strategies for achieving new and appropriate development within the city and will direct the redevelopment of the Point Breeze urban renewal area by zoning code controls and guidelines as detailed by the Philadelphia City Planning Commission. Honorable Chairperson and members of the committee, I respectfully request favorable consideration of Bill number 200183 and would ask the suspension of council rules to allow first reading on June 18th, 2020.
Thank you very much, Angel. I would like to recognize Councilman Maria Kiona Sanchez for questions.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, this is for the following bills. I just wanted to, we started, so my apologies for confusing.
It's okay. Any other questions or comments from members of the committee? If there is no one else here to testify on this particular bill, hearing none, please, thank you very much, Angel. If there's no one else here to testify on this bill whose name has not yet been called, hearing none, will the clerk please call the next panel for bill number 200346?
Paula Brumblow Burns.
Hi. Good morning, Chairperson Johnson and members of the Rules Committee. I am Paula Brumblow Burns, City Planner to the Development Division of the Philadelphia City Planning Commission. I am here to testify on Bill number 200346, which was introduced into City Council on June 4th, 2020 by Councilmember Jones. Bill number 200346 amends the Philadelphia zoning maps by remapping an area bounded by 56th Street, Arch Street, Conestoga Street, and Market Street. The bill seeks to rezone the block bounded by 56th Street, Arch Street, Conestoga Street, and Market Street from CMX2 commercial mixed use, I2 medium industrial, and RSA5 residential single family attached to CMX3 commercial mixed use. The change in zoning will facilitate a commercial and low-income residential project. This remapping is consistent with the recommendations of the West District Plan, and the plan recommends CMX3 commercial mixed use on this block to allow for transit-oriented development adjacent to the 56th Street L station. The City Planning Commission at its meeting on June 16, 2020, recommended Bill number 200346 for approval. I'll be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments from members of the committee? Is there anyone else here to testify on this bill whose name has not yet been called? Thank you very much for your testimony.
Okay.
Hearing none, will the clerk please call the first panel for bill number 200349? But before we call a panel, I would like for the author of the bill, Maria, I want to acknowledge the author of the bill, Maria Kiona Sanchez, to offer a few remarks.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to all my colleagues. Pre-COVID in the 7th Councilmatic District, we had begun some public discussions with RCOs and CDCs in the area, where what we saw was the pressure to bring residential development in the American Street Empowerment Zone. As many of you know, this is not only part of my district, this is where I also reside and have for the last 24 years. With COVID, a public engagement process that should have happened over the last 3 months did not happen. And then given the time constraints related to development and the pressures of the revisions to the tax abatement program at the end of the year, the council office continued to work with the City Planning Commission about what an overlay would look like in this part of American Street to allow residential. Residential development has been happening south of our district, and there were 2 projects in which the office opposed at CBA, took to court, and lost. Seeing with the time clock upon us, and the obligations and the potential for this, 5 or 6 projects that are in the queue to get through without a public process for the community, in consultation with the City Planning Commission, we put together this overlay. We met with the RCOs and promised them that we would still continue the public engagement process over the next couple of months, because we don't believe this is the end of the conversation. We believe it's part of the conversation. Yesterday at the Planning Commission, some advocates related to a community garden came forward, and the Planning Commission tabled this, although the expectation that was the Planning Commission staff were going to support this measure. So I'm going to ask my council colleagues to allow this bill to come up for a vote. And as I stated earlier, pre-COVID and then post-COVID, the world has changed. How we do public engagement is complex, but we're committed to a process. I'm a process person. I don't like where we are given the stage, but with the potential of 1,000 new units coming to the 7th Councilmatic District, I feel compelled to put together and propose what is the most aggressive, mandatory, affordable requirement that we have on the books in the city of Philadelphia. So many of you know this is part of the work that I've been doing for many, many years. Some of the developers in the queue have been working with CDCs to come up with agreements. None of them have surpassed 10%. Some others don't feel the need to because they have seen that the ZBA recourse has allowed them to build what they want to build. So it is in that context, in the pre and the post-COVID world, that I asked this committee for its consideration. I want to thank the Planning Commission staff. We had identified a really different process. This is where we are given the legislative calendar, but I continue to be committed to work with my colleagues and others as we try to move through this. Again, this is an important part of my district, South Kensington. It feels the pressures of all of transit-oriented development and other things, but it's also my neighborhood. So the folks impacted of this are not just my constituents, many are my friends. And in that spirit, I ask for folks' indulgence as I try to get through this and continue to commit to a public process. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You're muted, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman Sanchez. Can the clerk please call the first panel?
Paula Brumlow Burns and Will Gonzalez.
Thank you very much. Can you please just state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony?
Councilman Johnson, I apologize. This is Councilmember Squilla, just present for the hearing.
Thank you, Councilman. Please proceed with your testimony.
Good morning, Chair Member Johnson and members of the Rules Committee. I am Paula Brumlow Burns, City Planner with the Development Division of the Philadelphia City Planning Commission. I'm here to testify on Bill number 200349, which is introduced into City Council on June 4th, 2020 by Councilmember Keona Sanchez. Bill number 200349 amends Title 14 of the Philadelphia Code, entitled Zoning and Planning, to amend certain provisions of Chapter 14-500, entitled Overlay Zoning Districts. by creating the AME, American Street Overlay District, all under certain terms and conditions. This bill creates a zoning overlay on American Street from Oxford Street to Lehigh Avenue. It will permit multifamily housing on properties that are zoned ICMX, industrial commercial mixed use. If the ground floor areas along American Street contain uses that are not residential or parking for the first 50 feet in depth and have ceiling heights of 14 feet. The bill would require that a minimum of 20% of the on-site residential units be affordable. While this bill treats the 10 blocks of American Street holistically, staff was concerned that existing legally operating businesses will continue to be pushed out of the corridor by apartment building developers. Since the last rezoning of these neighborhoods, South Kensington and Norris Square in 2016 and 2017, approximately 150 light industrial jobs have disappeared because of multifamily development. 3 other proposals on the corridor would displace another 50 jobs if approved. The Planning Commission at its meeting of June 16, 2020, requested an additional 45 days for review of this bill. I will be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you. Mr. Gonzalez?
Thank you for giving us the opportunity to testify today on Bill number 200349 and Bill number 200350. We respectfully request that City Council continue to work to increase opportunities for affordable housing. We need City Council to continue its leadership role to ensure not only that the Housing Trust Fund is properly funded by the commitment made by the administration in the past, but that they be increased in this turbulent time when housing is more important than ever. Thank you for fighting for ways to ensure that there is rental assistance and protections from evictions. We also respectfully request that City Council continue to push the land bank to further facilitate the disposition of land for those who will use it to create affordable housing. Lastly, we ask City Council to consider legislation to ensure that development in federal opportunity zones, the 2 bills I mentioned concern areas in federal opportunity zones, have city-required enhanced processes of community input and accountability. That is lacking in the federal legislation that created the opportunity zones, but local jurisdictions can require it through local legislation. This community input and accountability process is very relevant to the 2 bills that are the focus of my testimony. We understand that the COVID-19 public health emergency interfered with a more enhanced full engagement on these bills. We also understand, however, that the forthcoming changes to the real estate tax abatement law by the end of this year create pressures to move forward on these bills at the moment. We see the bills as creating guardrails and a baseline to ensure at least 20% of new units in these areas to be built for affordable housing. It is not perfect, but it is a start. That is why, without City Council continuing to fight to support affordable housing, as mentioned above, is so important. We need more than zoning changes to bring about affordable housing that Philadelphia needs. Please do not be afraid to be bold. This is your time in history. Seize the moment. We need you. We look forward to working with you to keep affordable housing growing in Philadelphia. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gonzalez. The chair recognizes Councilman Curtis Jones.
Mr. Chairman, my questions related to my bill on 56 and Arch. I'd like to be recognized for the record after your consideration of the agenda. We can go back to mine.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Councilman. Are there any other questions and comments from members of the committee? Hearing none. Thank you very much for your testimony. Would the clerk please read the next bill?
The next witnesses are Paula Brumbelow Burns and Will Gonzalez.
Please state your name for the record and begin your testimony.
Good morning. I'm Paula Brumbelow Burns, City Planner with the Development Division of the Philadelphia City Planning Commission. I'm here to testify on Bill number 200350, which was introduced into City Council on June 4th, 2020 by Councilmember Kiona Sanchez. Bill number 200350 amends the Philadelphia zoning maps by changing the zoning designations of certain areas of land that are located within an area bounded by Norris Street, American Street, Burke Street, and 3rd Street, and will amend Title 14 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Zoning and Planning. It will amend certain provisions of Chapter 14-500 entitled Overlay Zoning Districts by creating the BNA, Berks and American Overlay District, all under certain terms and conditions. This bill creates a zoning overlay on American Street and rezones land for a single development project at Berks and American Streets from ICMX Industrial Commercial Mixed Use to IRMX Industrial Residential Mixed Use. For row home lots, additionally, the text on the overlay is for row home lots in RSA 5, single family, and RM1 multifamily. The bill will lessen lot width requirements from 16 feet wide to 12 feet in width. It will reduce minimum lot size from 1,440 square feet to 550 square feet for each individual lot. In RSA 5, if lots have a width greater than 15.5 feet, 2 units will be permitted if at least one of the units qualifies as affordable. The overlay for lot zoned IRMX will waive the height and building setbacks for rooftop solar panels, increase the maximum occupied area of the lot to 100% from 90%, and increase the maximum building height to 200 feet from the required 72 feet if at least 50% of residential units are affordable. The legislation will enable a partnership of the Scanapicio Trust and Association of Puerto Ricans on the March, APM, to build a mix of one-family and two-family homes on row home lots. It will also allow the construction of a mixed-use residential and commercial or residential and light industrial building on North American Street. Affordability requirements are included in this bill for both row home units and the proposal on North American Street. While this bill would enable affordable housing construction, there are concerns it will also set different standards for owners of existing row home lots nearby, which are otherwise identical but not part of this project scope. The City Planning Commission at its meeting of June 16, 2020, voted to request an additional 45 days for review. I will be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Any questions and comments from members of the committee? I had one question. On your prior bill, and I'll follow up with the author of the bill, when you talk about industrial jobs along American Street, how did you quantify the actual number of businesses that are along that corridor and actual employees? Like, where do you come up with those numbers from in terms of the Planning Commission?
Our community planner researched it and worked with the Commerce Department and some of the census data that comes out on the 5-year updates.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, can I be recognized for a point of information?
Yes, recognizes Councilman Maria Kiona Sanchez.
So I've been a resident of this area throughout the American Street Empowerment Zone. I think it's important to put in the context for the purposes of my colleagues that about 5 years ago, the administration sought funding to create a new streetscape. Within that new streetscape, they brought in raised bike trails that led to many of the industrial operators on the corridor who drive 63-foot trucks to say to my office and to others, if you're going to do bike lanes and say welcome tricycles, I don't want to be here. So the loss of jobs has been consistent in the corridor, unfortunately. That is why the insistence of us having all commercial frontage on American Street, because the jobs promised on American Street for industrial were never realized, but we do have an opportunity to ensure that with the residential comes a required amount of commercial space so that we can help promote local-based businesses and businesses to provide quality of life businesses for the residents. So I just want to put on the record that the loss of jobs was a decision when the city made to redo the street and kind of force this conversation. Again, this was federal, state, and city money. It was not a process that I enjoyed, but it took me a couple of years to work through the current operators on the corridor for the ones who have stayed, and it continues to be challenging to convince the others to stay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And just one last question for the record. In terms of the 45 days, and so what will be examined during that 45-day period?
The staff recommended approval of the bill, but the commission itself voted for the 45 days. So I believe that at our meeting, there was a large group of residents, I would say at least 20 people, commenting through our planning commission meeting, who were asking for the 45 days so they can still work with the councilwoman's office.
Good. Okay. All right, thank you. Any other questions and comments from members of the committee? Hearing none, I just want to say thank you very much for your testimony.
You're welcome.
Before we go into the public comment, I want to acknowledge Councilman Curtis Jones, who had a couple questions he wanted to ask regarding his particular bill for the record. Councilman Jones?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. They weren't questions. They were more in the form of comments that in spite of pandemics and in spite of protests, in spite of often looting, we are marching forward with development because that is the centerpiece to address poverty. That is a way to deal with some of the issues that are facing our constituents. And fortunately, some of those things have been able to continue in spite of all of these catastrophes. So whether it is the 7th District and what Member Sanchez wants to do, or the 4th District, which we've hammered out, we had many community meetings. The world has changed. Since then, we were able to get a commitment from the developers, not just to do a dollar store, but to do apartments and affordable housing next to the particular site they want to build on. That would create maybe 8 new units of pretty nice transit-oriented development. So we've slowed down over the last 13, 14 weeks. We should not do hard stops of development. So therefore, I will be voting for both my approval of the project, but I will also be supporting Maria Sanchez because she has a history of communicating with her constituents, working things out with her constituents, and I trust the district councilwoman to continue that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman Jones, and I echo your sentiments on the leadership of our colleague, Councilman Maria Sanchez. And I just want to say for the record, absolutely. We will need to take a 5-minute break as we prepare for public comment. the testimony of those who have signed up for public comment. The clerk will call your name and you will unmute yourself using *6. Once called, please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony. For the sake of time, if you have written testimony for individuals not present, please send it to my staff, Brett Needlecoff, in my office, and she will distribute it to the committee members as well as for it to be presented Needlecoff at phila.gov, and that's it's BRETT.NEDELKOFF at phila.gov. Again, that's BRETT.NEDELKOFF at phila.gov. Will the clerk please call the first panel?
Adam Butler.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi, my name is Adam Butler. I'm a volunteer at the Cesar Andreu Iglesias Garden, which is located right in the middle of the proposed overlay district that this bill would create. The garden was created by neighbors to provide food and a gathering place in an area that has been totally neglected by the city for decades. Unchecked, new construction has already been devastating to this particular area. We've seen dozens of families have been displaced over the past few years as predatory developers have acquired property, neglected real estate, and ignored the pleas of neighbors upset about the impact of construction on their homes and open spaces. This is a spot zoning bill by the Planning Commission's own description, and it shouldn't even be under consideration. It's clearly designed to benefit a development project led by Scantico, who have no apparent experience in this neighborhood. There has been no community involvement in the planning process, and introducing this variance without at a minimum giving the neighbors an opportunity to respond to a specific plan is totally unacceptable, pandemic or not. If indeed there will be an affordable housing component of this program, the neighbors would like to have input on how that will be defined, who will benefit, and how that commitment will be guaranteed by the stakeholders. The introduction of a 200-foot structure in this neighborhood is also a radical change and should include proactive community discussions. On another note, earlier this year, Scanapico, APM, and the councilperson's office proposed that a huge disposition of land bank property within this proposed overlay be given to them for development. We opposed that disposition at the time, and the land bank agreed to delay that disposition so that neighbors could be engaged in a conversation about the project, and that has still not happened. And seeing the zoning bill come forward without any additional donuts to the neighbors who would be impacted has enhanced the feeling among the neighbors that these projects will be happening whether anyone in the neighborhood wants them to happen or not. Council should not allow it. Regarding Councilperson Jones's comments, it's disappointing to hear his affirmation for this bill prior to the hearing of public comments. It suggests that this public hearing process is irrelevant. And regarding Councilperson Sanchez's introductory comments, the neighbors in this proposed overlay have been asking to be a part of this dialogue since last year. We invited her to the garden to discuss with us what we wanted and what we envisioned for a way forward. We also attempted to proactively engage with APM to offer our thoughts, and that conversation was never followed through on. Using the pandemic as an excuse to push through a bill without public comment, and including a promise to engage later after we've been trying to make our feelings known since last summer is unacceptable. The suggestion that the expiring property tax abatement should be an incentive is also not okay. We never wanted the tax abatement. It is killing this neighborhood. It is killing our schools. When they asked the land bank to dispose, one more thing. When they asked the land bank to dispose of these properties for the project in March of this year, we were told at the time that 51% of the units would be affordable, and what we heard today is 20%. It doesn't make sense. This bill should be postponed until the people have had a chance to be a part of this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Will the clerk please call the next panel? You're on mute, Joshu.
My apologies, Mr. Chair. Mara Hanau.
Hi. Yeah, I am here with Ms. Morgan and Ms. Sara. I think that if it's okay, if they could speak first. They're going to need interpreting, and I'm going to be interpreting for them.
Yes, please proceed.
Okay, thank you. ¿Habla usted primero? Ok, doña Sara, usted diga primero. ¿Qué? El lote está lindo mío, pero no tengo el acceso que me traen. Ajicito y pimiento no tengo, porque eso no se consigue ahora. Pero está bien bonito, gracias. Que Dios los bendiga.
I have a nice little lot, but I'm growing a few plants. I don't have any peppers right now, but God bless.
Ms. Hanau, could you identify the speaker?
Por favor, ¿puede decir su nombre?
Sara Vega.
Okay. ¿Alguien identifique su nombre primero?
Mi nombre es Morgana Ginette y vivo en el 2002 del norte de Lisco.
My name is Morgana Ginette, and I live on 2002 North Lisco. And I have a little thing that she wrote for me. So about 40 years ago, I have been living in this house. And since I first moved, I applied for the lot next to me. I received papers to be able to use it until 2006, which is when they stopped. After the meeting on March, with the land bank, copies of my paper for the lots were made, and I was left with the impression that something would be done to protect it. And then I could speak for myself. My name is Mara Henao, and I'm a gardener at the Sister Iglesias Garden. I have been gardening here for 7 to 8 years. And I live just over American on Marshall Street. I guess my testimony is just around the issues that we've encountered trying to have a garden in an area that was completely abandoned and forgotten by the city. We have been, I have witnessed, the violence of gentrification and the ways that it has, displaced many of the people who have been, at some point or another, volunteers at the garden, and we have lost into gentrification. And I think that all the excuses about, building all these houses and all these things to help, low-income people and stuff, that's not, we can see right through that. None of this is helping anybody in the neighborhood. None of this is helping us to stay here. We have actually declared a not displacement zone, and this whole entire area that you're trying to take for money and for profit is not going to be used anymore for the pockets of others, and we're going to stay here. You hear me? We are going to stay here. And this is a not displacement zone, and you're not going to move us out of here. That's my testimony.
Will the clerk please call the next parent?
30 plus years, especially at 1908 North Lawrence Street. And, the value of having a community garden, I don't know if anybody understands how it increases access to fresh foods. It improves food security. It increases physical activity. And what I mean by that statement is that we have elders that were not going to agriculture school, but this was taught from generation to generation, that they can teach our children and grandchildren how to do agriculture and be able to move around and stay active. This also improves dietary habits throughout education. It also reduces the risk of obesity and obesity-related diseases. These children don't know what it's like to have an apple or any kind of fresh fruit and vegetables. It's a lot cheaper to buy junk food than what it is to buy healthy meals. So I'm trying to understand and incorporate this ginormous building smack down on Lawrence Street. How is this going to be beneficial for our community? So that's basically all I have to say.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Will the clerk please call the next witness?
Valerie Banks.
Yes. I have a couple of concerns. First, it's like, when will the people of this community start to get safe and what development happen in our community? And another thing, now it's to the point where we no longer will we sit idle and watch big business and our leaders with personal agendas make decisions that are not in the best interest of the people in the community. I've been here since '68, and it used to be. I've been a committee person since the age of 18, and 58 now, and I've seen a big change in how things are done to our leadership, the people who are supposed to be our head voice for us. I see now that it's not about the people anymore. It's about hooking up with big business and their personal agenda, what they can get out of it. What about the people? What happened to it? Used to be community meetings where the people were aware of what was coming down the pipe. Now it's like it's done behind doors, and when we know about it, it's a done deal. We have no say in it, and that's not fair for the people of the community, because a lot of the things that are going on are not actually for the people in the community. What happens? What happens to us? It feels like to me that we're just getting pushed out, just a little corner over there for you. This is what we're going to give you, just a little piece. That's not fair to us. We should know what's going on or what's coming down the pipe in our community, where we stay, where we vote.
Thank you very much for your testimony, ma'am. Can the clerk please call the next witness?
Chairman, there are no other members of the public on the line for comment.
Any questions and comments from members of the committee?
Mr. Chairman, since we have Angel Rodriguez from the Land Bank on the board, can he explain the meeting that was referenced in March and what the Land Bank's next steps are? There has been a commitment both by the Land Bank and our council office to attempt to save this garden. But if Angel could respond to that for the record, that would be great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councilman Sanchez. Well, Mr. Rodriguez?
Good morning, Chairperson and committee members. My name is Angel Rodriguez. I'm the Executive Director of the Land Bank. As you heard in public testimony, this item did come up before the Land Bank board meeting in March. It was a resolution for a long-term lease to APM and the Scanapico Group for property management as they work towards doing affordable housing. I think points that I want to clarify for the public, for the Land Bank, when we do dispositions, we follow the disposition policy that was passed by council. For this type of development, we would not be able to do this as a non-competitive disposition unless 51% of all units created were affordable. And that affordability limit is from 120% of AMI down to 30%. We strongly encourage developers to push down towards 80 and 60% if they're looking for subsidy. In the question of the Iglesias garden, it should be noted that the Land Bank only owns 3 out of the 11 lots that are there, and they have been removed from any proposal. So we were in efforts of trying to get a disposition to the gardeners and process that. I'm having a hard time hearing. I think somebody has their phone off mute. We were in the process. I've been struggling to get my staff up and running so we can operate. So we had to pivot and go to a virtual environment and then start processing things. So 50% of my staff are up and running. We also at that board meeting did resolve to have a community engagement process prior to bringing this item back to the board. Because of the COVID pandemic, we have not been able to do that. So, but that is a commitment, and our objective right now is not to bring this item back to the Land Bank board until we've done those things that we resolved to do back in March. But again, as far as it concerns the garden, we only own 3 of the properties that comprise the garden. They are no longer part of the development proposal. But the majority of the garden parcels are privately held, which we have no control over. But for our part, we will not be seeking to dispose of them other than to the gardeners. And then the senior citizen who spoke at on the board meeting, we were trying to identify, she had a pre-existing garden agreement with the Redevelopment Authority that was transferred to the land bank, and that garden agreement did not come through. So we are trying to make sure that she has an existing garden agreement. So all of these items were discussed, but I also want to just be very clear. The land bank, is committed to affordable development, and our own standards are, when we put out an RFP, usually typically 60% of all parcels have to be 80% of AMI. When we get an unsolicited proposal, it's required by ordinance that 51% of the units produced have to be affordable.
I just have a quick question, Mr. Rodriguez. Who actually owns the other 8 parcels?
Various developers. There are a number of LLCs that own them. There are at least 5 different ownership entities that you can see on those lots. The land bank only owns 3. PHA owns 1 other.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Any other questions and comments for...
Mr. Chair, I just want to additionally, I think that the residents are right in the type of
Entire area.
the obnoxious development that has come into the area. Some of these parcels were tied into the U.S. bank liens that have plagued this area for a very, very long time, and it's an issue that I've talked about on the record. So I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Councilman Sanchez. Are there any other questions or comments from members of the committee? Okay, thank you very much. There being no further questions from members of the committee and no other witnesses to testify, I will ask if there's anyone else present in this hearing whose name we have failed to call and that wishes to offer testimony on any of the bills being considered today. Please identify yourself. Hearing none, I want to thank all the panels and witnesses for their participation today. We value your input. I now invite all panels and witnesses to please disconnect from the meeting before we go into our public meeting. We will now pause the proceeding briefly as multiple participants are leaving the hearing. This concludes the public hearing of the committee. We will now go into a public meeting to consider the action to be taken on the bills before this committee today. We will now convene the public meeting. Will the clerk please call the roll to take attendance? Members that are in attendance will please indicate that they are present when their names are called. Also, please say a few brief words when responding so that your image will be displayed on screen when you speak. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mark Squilla.
Here. Here.
No.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what did you just call out my name?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. Present, thank you very much.
Cindy Bass.
I am present, thank you.
Catherine Gilmore Richardson.
Present.
Bobby Heenan. Bobby Heenan. Maria Quinones Sanchez.
Present. Thank you very much.
Curtis Jones Jr.
I am present as a trained horticulture gardener who grows his own vegetables. I'm here.
Brian O'Neill.
I'm just here.
That's the roll, Chairman.
Thank you, everyone. I'd also like to acknowledge the presence of Councilman Bobby Heenan. And before I acknowledge the Vice Chair, Councilman Squilla, I want to also just say for the record that I know when we talk about affordable housing and workforce housing here in the city of Philadelphia, Council Maria Quinones Sanchez has been on the forefront of making sure that there is inclusion when it comes to development. There is inclusion when we address the issue of gentrification. There's equity when it comes to making sure we balance the level of development that takes place here in the city of Philadelphia. And so I just want to acknowledge that for the record, for all the hard work that she has done to make sure we add a level of balance. And has always taken tough positions when it comes to the issue of development here in the city of Philadelphia. Just want to acknowledge that for the record.
Mr. Chairman, this is Councilwoman Bass. I'd like to echo your sentiments. I just wanted to say, again, for the record, that I've known the Councilwoman for a very long time, and her advocacy on behalf of housing in the city of Philadelphia is legendary. She has really worked hard to ensure that, that all people, all ideas, all thoughts matter in the process. And as a fellow district council person, I just think that is something that is something that's critically important as we make decisions and weigh everything that needs to happen for everyone who lives in the community. And I think that she has really been artful in that matter. And I just really wanted to echo your sentiments on that matter.
Thank you very much, Councilman Bass.
I would also like to weigh in. The Planning Commission made the argument, which, if you were just hearing it in the abstract, would be possibly persuasive about jobs versus housing and versus affordable housing in the American Street corridor from Oxford to Lehigh. But I think we pretty much established that Councilwoman Sanchez knows that area better than the Planning Commission or anyone else in the city. So I'll be supporting Councilwoman Sanchez.
Thank you, Councilman O'Neill.
Mr. Chair,
Councilman Catherine Gilmore Richardson.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I just too would like to echo the sentiments of all of our colleagues in highlighting Councilmember Maria Quinones Sanchez's commitment to affordable housing and community work for the past 33 years. And my team and I had the opportunity to tour the district of Councilmember Sanchez prior to COVID, and I know and recognize the work that she has been doing in this area. And for those reasons, I will be supporting Councilmember Sanchez this morning. Thank you so much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Councilman Catherine Gilmore Richardson. The chair recognizes Councilman Mark Squilla for a motion on bill number 200183.
Thank you, Councilman Johnson. Mr. Chair, I move that bill number 200183 be reported from the committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit the first reading of this bill in the next session of council.
Second.
The chair notes for the record that Councilman Mark Squilla. I just want to clarify for the record, who just made the second on that motion?
Councilmember Gilmore Richardson.
Thank you, Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson. It has been moved and properly seconded that bill number 200.
continuing to do more research.
Oh, Councilor Squilla, can you put your phone on mute, please? It has been moved and properly seconded that bill number 200183 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading of this bill at the next session of council. All those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it and the motion carries. The chair recognizes Councilman Squilla for a motion on bill number 200346.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that bill number 200346 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended and submit the first reading of this bill at the next session of council.
Second.
The chair notes for the record that Councilman Gilmore Richardson and Councilman Curtis Jones has seconded the motion. It has been moved and properly seconded that bill number 200346 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading of this bill at the next session of council. All those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it and the motion carries. The chair recognizes Councilman Squilla for a motion on the bill, for a motion on the amendment to bill number 200349.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I offer an amendment to bill number 200349. A copy of the amendment has been circulated to all members of the committee. I move that the amendment to bill number 200349 be approved.
Second.
The chair notes for the record that Councilman Catherine Gilmore Richardson, and I think that's Councilman Brian O'Neill, seconds the motion. It has been moved and properly seconded that the amendment to bill number 200349 be approved. All those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. The motion carries, and the amendment to bill number 200349 has been approved. The chair recognizes Councilman Mark Squilla for a motion on bill number 200349 as amended.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the bill number 200349 as amended be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit the first reading of this bill in the next session of council.
Second.
The chair notes for the record that Councilwoman Catherine Gilmore Richardson and Councilman Brian O'Neill seconds their motion. It has been moved and properly seconded that bill number 200349 as amended be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading of this bill at the next session of council. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it and the motion carries. The chair recognizes Councilman Mark Squilla for a motion on the amendment to bill number 200350.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I offered the amendment to bill number 200350, and a copy of the amendment has been circulated to all members of the committee. I move that the amendment of bill number 200350 be approved.
Second.
The chair notes for the record that Councilwoman Catherine Gilmore Richardson and Councilman Curtis Jones seconds the motion. It has been moved and properly seconded the amendment to bill number 200350 be approved. All those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. The motion carries, and the amendment to bill number 200350 has been approved. The chair recognizes Councilman Squilla for a motion on bill number 200350 as amended.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that bill number 200350 as amended be reported out of this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit the first reading of this bill at the next session of council.
Second.
The chair notes for the record that Councilwoman Catherine Gilmore Richardson seconds the motion. It has been moved and properly seconded that bill number 200350, as amended, be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading of this bill at the next session of council. All those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it, and the motion carries. I also want to note for the record that Councilman Bobby Heenan is present for this committee hearing. This concludes the business before the Committee of Rules today. I want to thank everyone for taking time out of their schedule and for being here. And also, thank you very much and have a blessed day.
Thank you
Thank
all.
you.
Thank you to all my colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome.